So I'm here to talk about some static analyzer checkers we've been working on for our APIs. So a little bit of background. The static analyzer consists of a framework which models code execution and a set of checkers which use that framework to find problems in your code, potential issues. So we wanted to use this framework to see how people are using our APIs and find any problems where they're calling them incorrectly. So we created some custom checkers to do this. Some of them we adapted, we've got some new ones. So these checkers were initially hard-coded, which is how a lot of the checkers, similar checkers upstream work. So these were pretty useful, but they're a bit of a pain to maintain and they're not very useful for anyone else who wants to use them. So what we've done is extracted all the data to make more general purpose ones. So I'm going to give you a quick look at 3 of these checkers. The first one is the unchecked return. So quite simply, we're looking for places where people are calling functions where we want them to look at the return value, such as an error code. And if they're not doing that, we can produce a warning, a diagnostic, and inform them. And here's the Amyl data that we feed in. Obviously for this checker it's quite simple, it's just a list of all the functions that we're interested in. So next up is the asynchronous argument checker. So here what we're looking for is anywhere you're passing a stack, pointer to the stack to a function that's then going to read or write to that pointer sometime in the future, but don't know when. Obviously, since it's happening at some point in the future, that pointer might become invalid. And as you see, we produce diagnostics. The example, there's a slight more complicated cases, like here, the function only behaves asynchronously if the second argument is true. And these bugs can be really problematic to find. Sometimes they'll work nearly all the time and then just occasionally stack corruption. We used this checker to find a bug that was occurring every 3 hours, and the people responsible for that bug were pretty happy that we managed to find it. And here's the YAML that we pass into that checker, so we need to give it information on what parameters shouldn't be on the stack and any other conditions affecting whether the function is asynchronous or not. So lastly, the argument value checker. Here we're simply looking at what values you're passing into the functions, if there are any restrictions on the parameters. So in the example here, we have a function that can only take values from -10 to 10, and it gets past -12, and you get a warning. So the benefit of the static analysis framework here is this might not be obvious, it might be a very complicated path through your code, and you might not even hit it when you're normally running, but in some strange edge case. And here's the YAML data we feed into that checker to make it run. You need information on what parameters and their restrictions. So we're aiming to upstream these checkers. The idea is that anyone can check any of their APIs or any API they're using without having to modify the static analyzer code base. So we hope it will be useful. Thank you.